The muzzle looked impossibly large up close, a dark circle hovering at chest height in the porch light. The woman holding the handgun stood rigid at the edge of the driveway, shoulders squared like she was delivering justice, not a threat. Gravel crunched under her sensible shoes as she advanced one step, then another, never lowering her aim. Across from her, Daniel Reyes's daughter didn't flinch. She simply reached into her jacket with measured calm, as if the weapon pointed at her was an inconvenience, not a death sentence. Then the badge caught the light, and the neighborhood's little kingdom began to collapse.
Daniel Reyes had chosen Maple Crest because it promised quiet without isolation. After 2 decades in emergency medicine, he wanted nights without sirens and mornings without adrenaline. He bought a modest ranch house at the edge of a newer development, close enough that the grocery store wasn't a drive across town, far enough that his backyard still opened onto old oaks and a thin strip of undeveloped land. The listing had called it border adjacent, a real estate euphemism for sitting beside a community that had rules for everything. Pine Hollow Estates loomed one street over, complete with uniform mailboxes, ornamental street signs, and a manicured entrance that looked like it belonged to a resort. A small plaque at the entrance announced the HOA like it was a municipal authority rather than a private club. Daniel's property, according to the county plat map he reviewed before closing, was not in Pine Hollow. It was older land, subdivided long before the HOA's covenants existed. That mattered to him. He didn't mind neighbors taking pride in their homes, but he had no interest in committees that could fine him for the angle of his trash can. The first weeks were almost peaceful. He planted rosemary along the walkway and replaced a broken fence picket. He learned which floorboards creaked and where the afternoon sun struck the living room hard enough to warm the entire house. He met one neighbor, a tired-looking man who kept glancing up and down the street as if worried someone might be watching. That neighbor never said anything outright, but his caution hung in the air like humidity. He mentioned the HOA president's name with the kind of careful tone people use around a temperamental dog. He mentioned boundary issues and people who think they own the whole world. Then he changed the subject, as if words alone could summon trouble. Daniel told himself it was exaggeration. People always had stories about HOA tyrants. It was almost a genre. He had bought outside the line. He had done the paperwork. He had earned his quiet. Then the first envelope arrived. The letter looked official enough to fool someone who didn't know better. The letterhead carried Pine Hollow's crest, and the wording carried the confidence of authority. It welcomed Daniel to the community and outlined initial dues, late penalties, architectural compliance requirements, and a mandatory onboarding inspection. It read as if he had already agreed. Daniel didn't panic. He didn't even get angry at first. He compared the letter to the closing documents, then to the county records he had printed and kept in a folder. Everything still said the same thing. His address was not subject to Pine Hollow's covenants. He ignored the letter. A week later, a second envelope arrived, this one heavier with threat. It listed violations observed from the street, grass height, a ladder visible near the side of the house, a trash bin placed in public view, a vehicle parked in a non-approved location. The fines added up quickly, and the document implied they would become a lien if unpaid. Daniel felt the first prick of something colder than annoyance. Fines for rules he never agreed to, violations pulled from thin air. The HOA wasn't inviting him, it was claiming him. He filed a polite dispute by mail, including a copy of the county plat map. He highlighted the boundary line in bright marker, like he was teaching a lesson to a stubborn student. He expected it to end there. Instead, Pine Hollow escalated as if his refusal had become a personal insult. A white SUV began appearing at irregular times, idling near his curb.
Someone inside took photos. Sometimes the person stepped out, walked slowly along the sidewalk, and lifted a phone toward Daniel's yard as if documenting a crime scene. Daniel would look up from his garden and feel watched, measured, cataloged. Then the stickers started, small neon warnings slapped onto his trash bin when he rolled it out. Then a plastic tag looped around his mailbox post, printed with a non-compliant notice. It wasn't just paperwork anymore. It was physical, invasive, meant to embarrass him in front of passersby. He removed the tags. New ones appeared. One afternoon, he came home to find his bin missing entirely. Not knocked over, not misplaced, gone. He walked the block, scanning the curb line like he was searching for a lost pet. Behind Pine Hollow's stone entrance sign, tucked beside the ornamental shrubs, he spotted it. His bin, lid ajar, sitting among several others that looked recently confiscated. That night, another letter arrived, listing a fine for improper waste container management and an additional charge for retrieval and storage. Daniel's hands shook as he read it, not from fear, from disbelief at how quickly petty power could turn into organized harassment. He called the waste company, then the county, then a non-emergency line that gave him exactly what bureaucracy always gave him: sympathy without teeth. Pine Hollow's board didn't need to be right. It only needed to be relentless. The third escalation came disguised as community concern. A post appeared on a neighborhood app, one Daniel didn't even use, warning residents about an unregistered homeowner refusing to follow safety standards. Someone implied he was lowering property values. Someone else hinted he might be a squatter. The word spread fast, reshared by people who loved the feeling of being on the correct side of a moral panic. Suddenly, polite waves on the street changed. Curtains twitched. A woman walking her dog crossed to the other side rather than pass his driveway. Daniel began to feel like he had moved into a place where reputation was controlled by whoever printed the notices. He stayed focused on facts. He pulled the plat map again. He visited the county assessor's office. He confirmed in person what he already knew. His property remained outside Pine Hollow Estates. The clerk printed an official boundary confirmation and stamped it with the kind of ink that usually calmed disputes. Daniel sent it certified mail. Pine Hollow's response arrived as a final notice that read like a dare. It claimed the boundary map was under review, that Pine Hollow's expanded service area entitled the HOA to collect dues, and that failure to comply would result in enforcement actions. The language danced just close enough to legality to sound plausible, like a scam written by someone with a law dictionary. Then the enforcement actions began for real. A towing company truck arrived early one morning while Daniel was inside making coffee. By the time he heard the metallic clank and rushed out, the hook was already under his rear axle. A man in a reflective vest pointed at a laminated sheet and gestured toward Pine Hollow's street like it proved something. Daniel watched, stunned, as his truck was hauled away from his own driveway. Getting it back cost time, money, and humiliation. The impound lot treated him like he had done something wrong. The paperwork referenced a private road violation, despite the fact that his driveway connected to a county-maintained street. It was as if Pine Hollow had simply decided reality was optional. Daniel began documenting everything: photos of tags, video of the idling SUV, screenshots from neighbors who quietly forwarded the posts they saw, copies of each letter, each fine, each threat. His kitchen table turned into an evidence desk. The next incident hit at the softest place possible: his home repairs. Daniel had scheduled a small roof patch after a storm. The contractor arrived, unloaded materials, and then left abruptly, face tight and apologetic. Daniel later learned someone had called the contractor's office claiming Daniel wasn't authorized for exterior work and that any company assisting would be blacklisted from Pine Hollow jobs. The HOA was now reaching beyond paper, beyond embarrassment, into his ability to maintain his own property. That crossed from nuisance to warfare. Daniel's daughter, Marisol Reyes, had been following his updates from a distance. She lived 2 counties over and had spent the past year in an exhausting campaign that ended with her election as county sheriff, an outcome that still felt surreal to Daniel when he thought about the little girl who used to line up stuffed animals and pretend to run a safety patrol. Marisol didn't offer comfort, she offered clarity. She told him to keep documenting and to stop handling it alone. A week later, she arrived on a Friday afternoon in an unmarked vehicle, dressed simply, no uniform, no visible authority. She didn't come to intimidate anyone, she came to help her father reclaim his life. The moment she stepped onto Daniel's porch, Pine Hollow reacted as if it had sensed new blood. That evening, Daniel found a fresh notice taped to his door, this one warning of immediate action if he did not sign a document acknowledging HOA jurisdiction within 72 hours. The paper looked like a trap, a signature turning a false claim into consent. The next day, cones appeared near his driveway entrance, positioned as if his property line had suddenly become a construction zone. A thin rope connected them, making it awkward to pull in. It was a small obstruction, but it carried a message. They could touch his home whenever they wanted. Marisol walked the perimeter with him, studying the cones, the rope, the line of sight from the street. Daniel watched his daughter's expression shift into something familiar, the focused stillness of a professional assessing threat. He felt a strange mix of pride and dread. He wanted her to fix it. He didn't want her dragged into it. On Sunday morning, Pine Hollow's president appeared in person. Candace Whitmore looked the part. Carefully styled hair, crisp athleisure, a lanyard that held a laminated badge with Pine Hollow's crest, as if cosplay could turn a private citizen into a government official. She moved with the certainty of someone used to people stepping aside. She did not come alone. 2 other board members hovered behind her like understudies, clutching clipboards and keeping their phones ready. Their eyes swept Daniel's yard, landing on harmless details as if searching for violations to convert into profit. Candace approached the porch, postured tight with indignation, and held out a packet of papers like a verdict.